Hello and welcome to the Oddschecker betting show. I'm your host, George Elek, and this is an extra edition. We were meant to have one last week to preview the racing at Newbury last Saturday. The weather got in the way of that one, but they have got it back on. It's on Sunday. The Denman Chase, the Game of Spirit Chase, and the Betfair Hurdle, all going on in a decent day's racing. And we are here on this Friday, the 19th of February, to preview it. And two expert guests join me in Ed Quigley and Andy Holding. Ed, I'll come to you first because we're welcoming you back. It's been a while since we've seen you. How have you been? And how are things down at Cheltenham?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's wet. It's raining. Yeah, nothing's changed here. No, it's been blue sky for a few days actually. Actually got a bit of exercise. Went up to Cleve Hill, had a look down at the race course. No, it's obviously just 3.5 weeks away now. The buzz in Cheltenham would normally be starting in about a week or two from now, but obviously we're not going to have that this year to that extent. But no, look, yeah, things are going well. It's all just kind of ticking away now to the festival itself, but an absolute bonus to have this Newbury card on the Sunday, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a seriously good weekend's racing, and really looking forward to what we've got in store. Andy, I spoke to you yesterday, so not too many pleasantries, but anything happened to you in the last 24 hours we should know about? Any winners banged in?
No, I had my first blank day for a little while yesterday, so you obviously must have been my jinx.
There's a lovely card at Dundalk this afternoon, Andy. I'm sure you'll make some sense of that.
Yeah, Dundalk looked a little bit easier. I had fancied one yesterday, Gary Moore's, and it fell halfway down the back straight, so that was a bit of a blow. But yeah, this Sunday meeting, it's great. It's on, isn't it? Unfortunately, it's probably going to mess up my normal Sundays because Sundays I tend to have off and take the dog for a walk on Sunday afternoon. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of jiggery pokery with the missus, I think, to try and get back for at least sort of halfway through the afternoon to watch some of it, which is not easier said than done. No,
jiggery pokery, though. I know you're pretty good at that stuff, Andy, so I don't doubt you'll make it work. Before we get into the racing, we're just going to go through the Newbury card today. 4 races have been priced up. It's 20 to 12 on the Friday. So final decks are just in the opener, the Novice Hurdle, and then the penultimate race, the Novice Chase, and then the bumper at the end. They haven't got prices at the moment. They probably won't come up until, I wouldn't have thought, tomorrow afternoon. But we'll look through the cards, and Andy and Ed will look to flag any just to keep an eye on at this stage. Do download the Oddschecker app immediately. Do it right now for the very best prices across all sports and the very best bookie offers, free bets and place terms, and of course tipsters such as Andy himself. It's the first place where you can find all of Andy's tips straight to the app every single morning. Right then, on to the first race of the day. The Reed Paul Nicholls on Betfair, betting.betfair Novices Hurdle, this one is. And as I say, no prices as it stands at the moment. We've got 15 that are in and a few promising types in here. Good Ball for Paul Nicholls, one of them. A Horse with No Name for Nicky Henderson, another. Interesting, Andy. Who do you expect to kind of come out at the top end of the market, and who are you looking forward to seeing again? Who stacks up well in terms of your time figures? Because you do seem to make quite good sense out of these novice hurdles.
Yeah, I'd suggest that this will probably centre around Good Ball and A Horse with No Name without seeing any prices. Obviously, you'd have to respect Goal Road, who at least is a course and distance winner himself. But I think his jumping would need to improve. I think to perhaps give the penalty away to these two youngsters down the bottom, particularly Good Ball. I'm surprised that Paul Nicholls, in some respects, hasn't really laid out Good Ball for the Boodles. I think he's got another one for that race. I think his main horse for that is the one that finished third in the finale hurdle at Chepstow, a recruit from France, reading his trainer file the other day. But this Good Ball didn't create a good impression when he won here. He was well touted beforehand. I think he was sent off favourite, but it looked a good race, and albeit he made slightly heavy weather of it in the end, he was well on top at the finish, and the race has actually worked out quite well. The aforementioned Goal Road, who finished fourth and didn't jump well that day, has gone on to win back over the course and distance. Grumpy Charlie, the fifth, has won twice since for Chris Honor. Looks a nice horse, actually. And even the seventh horse home, Golden Boy Grey, who I had my slight reservations about at Fontwell yesterday, slogged his way through the mud to win a 2 mile 3 Novices Hurdle and lowering the colours of a horse called Beauport. So that form looks a little bit tasty. Carrying forward into a race like this. As I said, I thought this normally would have been a prep for the Boodles. He's rated 131, which would get him in to that. But perhaps Paul just sees him as a long-term prospect. You know, he's more of a chasing type, and he doesn't want to risk him in a race of that nature. Horse with No Name's just had the one run for Nicky this season. It was a good one as well at this track. Chasing home Pink Sheets. It was a day that Pink Sheets got first run on a good bunch of mares. And I presume that she'll go to the Cheltenham Festival now, Pink Sheets, and a Horse with No Name. I'm not sure what they're going to do with her. Not if she goes to Cheltenham bound, but basically she brings listed mares form, course and distance form to the table. So both of these two are obviously above average for a race this nature. I don't think Goal Road's good enough. Not one or two of the others have got bits and bobs of promise, but not as good as Eater. But yeah, I'd expect Good Ball to be favourite, just slightly ahead of Horse with No Name.
What kind of price would you be looking for Good Ball to make
Probably be 7 to 4, 2 to 1, and Horse with No Name 5 to 2, 11 to 4. It'd be 5, 6 to 1 the top one, and then you're looking at 7 or 8 to 1 bar. I would have thought.
There you go. There's the Andy Holding tissue. Normally you have to pay the big bucks for that. Ed, how about you? Anything you're seeing here beyond the obvious ones that Andy's mentioned?
Yeah, indeed, without the prices. If you could get double figures on Hoi Polloi, I thought that would definitely be of interest of Emma Laval's, because I thought I was quite impressed with the win on his debut at Kempton. The second and the third have come out and won since. That form looks pretty decent. Then stepped up to 2.5 on very tacky ground at Hereford last time out and appeared to fall in a hole and not travel with any zest. So I did think it was definitely of interest dropping back to 2 miles, because the horse did quicken up nicely over the minimum trip on his penultimate start. And also, I always mention this on the old weather watch, but the weather gods are having a laugh at the moment, because you've got Ascot, which is softer heavy, Haydock, which will be a swamp. I think Wincanton's heavy going on more heavy. Yet Newbury's officially now good to soft. So it's quite unbelievable, really. This is your spring ground, and I do think Hoi Polloi, as I said, the ground last time at Hereford, they called it soft. A lot of the jockeys saying it was bordering on heavy, and I do think on a better surface relative at this time of year, if that one could easily run into the frame if you could get a double figure price. But yeah, novice hurdles not at this time of year, especially not normally my my type of thing to be getting involved with.
So Hoi Polloi, the one to keep an eye out for a double figure price for Ed, but and Andy, just making sense, I guess, of the card before we know the prices, and judging, maybe if the prices are out of kilter with his tissue, then you can find a bit of value there yourself come Saturday evening. On then to the 150, and we do have prices here for the handicap hurdle. Southfield Harvest is 5 to 1 favourite with Betfair Sportsbook, ahead of Sizable Sam at 6 to 1, Mint Condition 8 to 1, Es Perfecto 9 to 1, 11 to 1 Palmer's Hill, 14 to 1 bar. Ed, will stay with you. You said you weren't too keen on novice hurdles at this time of year. How's about a handicap hurdle?
Yeah, intriguing little contest these, aren't they? I mean, Southfield Harvest is the interesting one. And the cynical side of me says, I mean, do they want to win with this horse, given the fact that, well, what I'm saying is they want to win the Pertemps final, and Paul Nicholls has flagged it up. Off 135, he would have got in, 9 the last 10 contests nicely. I think 133 was the base last year. So you don't really want to go and smash yourself to bits in regards to the handicap. I think they'd be just quite happy if he jumps around and goes in the top 3 and puts in a nice performance. I'm reticent, to be honest with you. I mean, Mint Condition's been declared for this, I presume, on the basis of in case Haydock gets called off, because Mint Condition is due to run in the Grade 2 Prestige Novices Hurdle on Saturday. It's one of my strongest bets on the Saturday, if in fact that meeting does go ahead and line up. So I've got to be honest with you, I'm a little bit confused in terms of who's going to be lining up, who really wants to win.
The third favourite's not going to go.
Not a non-trial. If he wins, goes at the 140 or something, then it's brilliant. We saw it with in a similar contest a couple of years ago, didn't we? Well, a few years ago. Remember Fingal Bay when Exeter got nudged up £5 or £6 and went and won it. Like, I was kind of a bit tongue in cheek, really. But what I'm trying to say to you, I don't think it'd be the end of the world that the horse jumped round in second, got that run under his belt, and then got in off a nice low weight for the Pertemps final. So again, I'm not adding much value to this. There's so many of these races at the moment that really are kind of notebook courses with the festival in mind. I think it is fair to say, or at least they are through my binoculars anyway. So I'll leave Andy for the strong views. Andy,
straight over to you.
Yeah, it's interesting with that Southfield Harvest. He's already qualified courtesy of that runner-up spot at Wincanton. I presume they're running him here to see whether he does get the 3 miles. He looks as though he'll get it standing on his head. But it's really odd when you have a Pertemps qualifier that is way short of the distance what they're going to tackle at Cheltenham. I find that always a little bit confusing. Either way, Paul Nicholls hasn't got a particularly good record in the Pertemps final, so I wouldn't be interested in a horse like Southfield Harvest. You just really want to be looking over to Ireland and the usual suspects. Gordon Elliott, he's won it the last 3 years, and that Pertemps qualifier at Leopardstown will probably throw up the winner. again in the shape of the Boss's Oscar. But anyway, that's enough for another day.
That's another podcast.
I like Sizable Sam, but again, he's similar to Southwell Harvey. All his best form at the moment. He's going right-handed over 2.5 miles on a flat track round Wincanton, so he's probably going to be a little bit overrated in the betting because he's got a string of ones by him. I don't fancy him in condition. I tipped him at Warwick last time out, and I still can't believe he didn't win. But he comes from a yard since that day. I've gone through an absolute rotten patch. 27 runners, 55 days since a win, Jenny Canlish. So you just need to be a little bit careful about that yard. And they've had a lot of fancied runners, not as if she's running 100-1 shots. So the A over E is not very good for that yard. The one I quite like here is also called Do Win, right down the bottom. Warren Greatchicks is 7-year-old. I haven't seen a horse for a long time as much as this, crying out for 3 miles as this fella. I'm surprised Warren hasn't pitched him over 3 miles yet, because every single time he's run over 2.5 miles so far this season, he's got done for a bit of toe and then run on quite strongly from the midfield towards the back of the field. He was 5th in a very strong renewal of the Lanzarote Hurdle last time out, again doing all his best work at the end. And he's escaped by coming out of that race with still 1, 2, 3, even though I marked him up quite considerably. I think this track will suit him, big galloping track. But more in keeping with the fact that he's now going over a trip, which I think will suit his run style. Do Win, was it 14-1?
Do Win 14-1, yeah. William Hill and Betfair Sportsbook.
Yeah, 14-1. Yeah, that looks a nice price, doesn't it? Considering we've just scrubbed out at least 3 that can't win.
One of them that can't win, Andy, is Ed's nap at Haydock. You can't be saying that.
Hopefully, it doesn't line up. Yeah,
yeah. It's just like I say, I love him in condition as well. I mean, like I say, I put him up last time out at Warwick, and he should have won that grade too. But
yeah,
you know, you've got to go with the training stats at the moment. They're looking a little bit iffy with regards to Jenny Canlish. So it'll all be about price. If it's favourite Saturday, and with the Canlish team, I'd just leave it alone, having backed it at 10s last time.
Well, Dowen, the one for Warren Greatchicks, and Andy Holding 14-1 for the second on the card at Newbury. On then to the Betfair Denman Chase, and Clan des Obeaux is the even money favourite. That's with William Hill. Lost in translation, clipped in already, 7-2, now opened up at 4-1 after the final declarations. That's with Unibet. Kalashnikov 8-1, Dashel Drasher 10-1, been left in here due to run Alaska on on Saturday. It's interesting to see what happens there. Secret Investor 10-1, 20-1 bar. Andy, stick with you here. Firstly, is Clan a good thing at even money or one to take on? And if you're going to take him on, 8 runners as it stands at the moment, who have we got?
Yeah, it's a real shame because Dashel Drasher, by the looks of it, will go to Ascot. That seems to be his track right hand. He's won those last 2 runs. And we're going to have the horrible 7, aren't we? So it is a shame. But there's more than one way to skin a cat nowadays, isn't there, with these markets? And they'll bet 3 places. Some firms will be betting 3 places on the day, which leads me nicely onto what I'm prepared to back, or what I'm looking at doing anyway. Obviously, you can find flaws in Lost in Translation and Clans des Obeaux if you wanted to dig deep enough. But look, they are the class acts, and the market's got it about right. But I think if the conditional gets a little bit softer ground come Sunday, and obviously Ed's already given us that rain watch. And I have looked at the forecast myself. I think Newbury is right in between. I think you draw a line right down the centre of the country, and the east side of it is going to be fine out towards sort of Lincolnshire, Market Raisin that way. But anything sort of the west of London could be showers up to sort of 4 or 5 mil. So if they do get the rain, it'll definitely bring conditional into this equation. But he's not to be underestimated. He loves Newbury. Obviously, he ran really well in the Hennessy Beyond Cloth Cap. The ground would have been a little bit too lively for him that day. Good ground. But on heavy ground, last time at Ascot, he showed what he's made of once again. But I wouldn't say he needs a swamp, but he needs soft ground at least to slow the others down and give himself a chance. But I don't think he's got a massive amount to find. I mean, he's, the weights and measures will say, it's a £20 job that he's got to make up. But I always take those a little bit of pinch of salt. I think some of these horses are capable of easily outrunning their current ratings based on track ability and ability to handle the ground. I think it brings them closer together. So look, he's 20-1 the conditional. I'll probably have a very, very small bet on him to win at 20-1. But if I could get sort of, I'm trying to predict what price he'll be 3 places, you'd probably be looking around the 2-1 in between 2-1, 5-2 to be in the front three. And, with the likes of Sapage, Kalashnikov, Secret Investor, Terry Fort, that we don't know where we are with those, some of them over the trip or with our general well-being. Obviously, Kalashnikov's bled really badly in the past. Yeah, I'd take a punt on the conditional.
Just before I ask Ed for his views on the race, I mean, Clanders Oboe obviously didn't do what he normally does on Boxing Day at Kempton and was well beaten by Frodon that day. I mean, does that in itself make Clanders Oboe, a horse to take on here at this price, Andy? Or, would it not be a massive surprise to see? I mean, I suppose it's built into the price. If he'd won that race well, it'd be a lot shorter than the even money you're getting now. Yeah,
it's very similar to the surname situation where we discussed that yesterday. He comes there off the back of a couple of poor runs. The signs that things are not quite going according to script. And Clanders Oboe, he loves it round here. He loves Newbury flat track, left-handed. He's very much his bag. So I don't think he's quite on the decay yet. But that just, if some buts enough to put me off at a short price, particularly Lost in Translation, I can never work him out. He's pulled at one day, runs a blind the next day, and they've had a wind up with him, and the yards in form, out of form. It's just, they're just hard horses to be in love with it, backing at their short prices. Being a man for sort of looking at value most of the time, those kind of horses just don't interest me. I'm never ever going to be sticking up a horse like Clanders Oboe or entertaining backing him at that price. I'd rather back the conditional at 5-2 to finish in the first three than I would even money the Clanders Oboe.
There you go, Clanders Oboe. Not interesting, Andy. I have a feeling it won't be interesting long shot Ted either. But the conditional is 20-1 at the moment with Unibet. But as we say, with Dashwell Drasher likely to come out, this market will look very, very different if that is the case come Sunday morning. Ed, over to you.
I'd probably roll the dice with Lost in Translation. I know he's very unreliable, almost unreliable as me getting the bins out on the right time, to be honest with you. But the thing is, yeah, exactly. Well, these days, absolutely. It's well documented, wasn't it? The malaise of the Colin Tizard yard. What did they have? 3 winners between October the 1st and whenever it was, end of January, something absolutely crazy like that. But however, they do appear to have turned the corner. And yeah, this horse ran deplorably when last seen, and he had a little bleed and everything. But I do just wonder whether the yard are coming back. I mean, there were so many good horses running inexplicably poor races. It was almost too bad to be true. It was really interesting to listen to Joe Tizard. He said they had problems with mineral levels, dodgy hay, a few other things he didn't want to almost disclose or go into. So there clearly were big problems down at the yard. They appeared to have at least sorted them out. And Lost in Translation, obviously on his top form, could easily go and win this. And I just think if he could get back to his best, I think his best, I mean, it's open to debate, is arguably better than Clanders Oboe's. I mean, the way he absolutely laughed at Hey Dr. Mai back in the Betfair chase a couple of years ago, it was absolutely scintillating. And I just think the ground could be quite key with him. These horses who keep having wind operations, keep having issues, I do like to see them on a sounder surface. And so, yeah, I'd marginally be going Lost in Translation over Clanders Oboe purely because Clanders Oboe's even money and he's lost his last couple. Just for the notebook again here, this interesting Terrafort lines up after 2 years off the track. I just keep him in mind. The Cheltenham handicap entries are out next week. This horse has been off the track 2 years, but let's not forget he's got some really good form. He beat Surname at Sandown in a Grade 1. He actually trounced the field in a Grade 1 at Aintree going back 3 years ago. So he's got some really good bits and pieces of form. So I think they get a run into him now and then keep your eyes on him for a spring handicap. And maybe Aintree may be more his bag going further forward. But keep your eyes on him because I'm no doubt he'll get entries in the plate, the Ultra and all sorts. And if he improves for that run, which you think he would do, then he could go off a lively price in one of the spring festival handicaps.
Good stuff there from Ed. On then for Lost in Translation, as I said, 7-2, sorry, best price at the moment. Bit of a leap of faith, but that's where you're getting the value, always crucial there. On then to the 3 o'clock, and it is the Betfair Game Spirit Chase, the Grade 2. And we've got Grenadine is the 15-8 favourite ahead of Champ. A very interesting return to the racecourse, a long-awaited one for Champ at 130. Soroyal is 4-1, Dolos 8-1. Fanny and Destraval 8-1, Magic Saint 12-1. Andy, come straight back over to you here. A little 6-runner affair. Let's start with Champ, I guess, because this quite clearly wasn't the plan, but this is the first we're going to see of Champ since that very dramatic win at Cheltenham last March.
Yeah, he's the most interesting runner on the card, isn't he? Certainly going
Mhm.
forward. I don't think we'll get too many sort of Gold Cup clues, as it were, because he obviously is not going to be tested to the max. I'd imagine Nicola Bourneville would be told to go out there and give him as pleasant an experience as possible. Very similar to Bouvardere did at Haydock. If they can't win, then don't knock them about. So he's a very, very risky proposition from a betting perspective on Saturday. I'm amazed that he's second favourite. He's never won over 2 miles, and all the times that he was running over 2.5, Nicky Henderson always said that look, you'll see a difference when he's over 3, and we saw his stamina coming to play in the RSA when he needed every yard of a stiff 3 to get up. So
Yeah.
I can't believe he's going to be fully wound up, B, knocked about, C, effective against genuine 2-milers. First time, I'd be happy to lay him at 3 to 1, 7 to 2, because you've got Grenadine and Sco Royale's the one that should be second favourite. I mean, he's got a body of work this season to suggest he's as good as ever. He was second in the race last year to Altior. He'll like the better ground, and other than his uncharacteristic fall last time at Kempton, he's run amazingly well all season long. But getting onto Grenadine, I think he's the right favourite. He's running beyond Politolog on ground. It was probably a little bit too soft for him, and it obviously favoured Politolog was a career best to suggest he definitely belongs in graded company, whether that's grade 1 or grade 2, whatever. Long term, I don't know. I don't think he's good enough for a champion chase against this year's field. But this looks a perfect match for him. Flat track, goodish ground, providing we don't get an absolute deluge of rain. He travels well, he jumps well as far as I could see. He should get a nice toe into the race. I'd imagine either Fanny and Destraval, maybe Magic Sate might want to press on. But yeah, either way, I think he's the right favourite. He'd be my choice. With Sco and easily second best on what's likely to happen, let's say.
How can we, what you're saying about Champ looks pretty rock solid there. Is there any way that we can maximise that? I mean, do you ever play the forecast there, Grenadine and Sceau Royale? Can you look to play Slade Champ on the exchanges?
Yeah, that's probably what you'd look to do. Like I say, I'd be quite willing or happy to lay him at 7 to 2 if that's what he's going to be. I think there'll be a lot of other people like myself looking to do that. So we all might be fighting over who's going to push it out the furthest, and then it obviously becomes a backable price for some that think that's just too big. That's usually how it works. But look, he's just a hard horse to fancy under the conditions. Like I say, they're going to go fairly quick. He's going to be a little bit rusty. Look, if he manages to win, wow, what a performance that'll be, and we'll all be taken aback. And he's got, his Gold Cup credentials are even more rubber stamp. But Nicky will have like the way Nicky's mindset is and the way he operates. The Gold Cup's the only thing that matters. That's round the corner. This is just basically a prep for that. So he won't be going out there, desperate to win this race. If it happens, it happens. But if he finishes third, running on and getting beat 10 lengths by Grenadine, he'll take that now, I think.
Yeah, just going for a spin with Nico Champ as it stands. Not often you can talk about 130 chances being a massive shock if it wins, but that it seems to be the case here given the circumstances. Ed, over to you.
Pretty much agree with everything Andy has said there. No, I've read, to be honest with you, Champ is skewing this market. I've read so much stuff, and 3-page analysis on will he have the speed over 2 miles. I think we've all lost the plot here. Nicky Henderson put in his August pre-season tour. There are 4 days in March which matter in the jump season for this horse, and I think we're all forgetting that. This is nothing more than jumping round in third, getting fit. Nicky Henderson said he's been talking to Henrietta tonight about trying to sharpen his jumping up because there's a race against time here. We haven't seen him for a year. He's going to have this and then go into a Gold Cup. Yeah. So dropping him back to 2 miles, tuning him up, and really try and sharpen his jumping up and getting going, which if there's an Achilles heel or a chink in his armour, it is jumping, which, was far from flawless even when he won the RSA. So, I just think he's... Say you can't win. I mean, it's a horse race at the end of the day. But I thought, I'd have Grenadine as favourite. And I'd have Sceau Royale very close to him. Remember, Sceau Royale's getting £6 as well. If you look at official figures, that swings it much more in favour of him. A flat track, better ground. I'd be tempted to do the reverse forecast, Grenadine and Sceau Royale. Dolos, I don't think is good enough. Fanning and Destra, I think needs further. Magic Saints, I don't think is good enough even. So... Yeah, I think Chubb is a red herring. We're all just talking far too much about him. It's just he jumped. As long as he doesn't fall, then he's going to end up in the stairs hurdle, isn't he? to be blunt. But I'd be shocked if Champ was good enough to see off these rivals on the basis that Sir Royale and Granatine both get round. But very quick note on Granatine is interesting. This is Paul Nichols saying on the back of this. His gut tells him he's not quite sure the Champion Chase is his race. However, if he did come out and bolt up here, they would almost by default have to go for it. But Harry Compton got off after the Tingle Creek. He thought perhaps the Ryanair would really suit him. So I think there'll be a little bit of a fact-finding mission. They're either going Champion Chase or Ryanair on the back of what happens to Grenadine in this contest.
Interesting stuff there. Definitely the top two in the market taking the fancy. There's a very underused part of oddschecker, which is the Dutching calculator, which I never thought I'd be able to promote on an oddschecker podcast. But if you did want to back both the 15-8 of Grenadine and the 4-1 of Sir Royale with £10, for example, you could have £6.35 on the favourite, £3.65 on the second favourite, £10 staked. One of the wins, you win £8.25. Lovely stuff. So just about 10 to 11. Perfect.
A Dutching calculator. I've never.
I'll get my Holland shirt on next time.
Yeah.
Andy, stick it into Google. I mean, I reckon that is, having used oddschecker for a long time and I've known it's existed for a long time, that is probably the third time I've used it. But let's give it a bit of love. It's still there. You've got a Dutching calculator, a Hutching calculator, and a hedging calculator up on site. So don't say that we don't look after you at oddschecker for all of your punting needs. On then to the Betfair Hurdle over 2 miles, the 3:35. And the favourite is Kadzand at 11-2, ahead of Soaring Glory at 6-1. Mr. Kofi 10-1, Buzz and Edward Stone both 12-1. 50 Ball and Onto Victory 14-1. Time White, Milkwood, Shake 'em Up Harry, Guard Your Dreams, and Annual Invictus all 16-1, 20-1 bar. I mean, it's always a brilliant race on the racing calendar every year. Always notoriously tricky to find your way through. Betfair Sportsbook at the moment goes 7 places, which I think probably reflects that. Andy, a few likely types in here. Who's taking your fancy at the moment?
I mean, yeah, this is about as good as it gets, isn't it? This is almost like a classier version in the county hurdle, because I think a few of these might even go down slightly different routes after this race, such as Grade 1 level. It's a bit of a head scratcher. I had a bit of a dart at it over a week before it was due to be run last week, so two and a half weeks ago, and I came up with a couple. I'm happy with the position we're in on Soaring Glory. One of them, he falls into the category of being a lightly raced second season hurdler that could be open to all man improvement, but the trouble is there's about 10 or 12 of them this year. You're looking for sort of 5-6 year olds, usually speaking, so that's quite nice. And he's also run around the track as well. That was another thing I looked at. I do like horses who run flat left-handed in particular, but if they've got form at Newbury and he was second to do so, that's got to at least be worth something in the long term. Obviously, Grade 2 company just found him out last time out on ground. A little bit maybe too soft for him at Ascot, but it's still a good run beyond my Drogo and Landigado boy. And John Joe, I remember back in the day, actually, just sort of anecdotally like to bring in a race back in, I think it was 1989 when Grey Salute won. And I used to go to it was always used to fall in around my birthday time. And my mum and dad always used to take me to Newbury as a bit of a treat. And I ended up back in the week before, or it might have been 2 weeks before that, a horse called something I can't remember its name now. This story's going to fall down on its face. It was one of John Joe's anyway. Something Debray. And I backed it at 10-1. It had won the Haydock Champion Hurdle Trial the week before on the bridle, stuffing a really good field. And he was actually 4-7 to win the Betfair Hurdle, or as it was the Schweppes Hurdle back in the day. And he got beat. He got beat by Regal Salute, trained by John Jenkins, ridden by Richard Dunwoody. So I do remember this race very, very fondly, or not very fondly. But what I'm saying is John Joe Neal has obviously got painful memories back in the past, so he's looking to perhaps correct or right those wrongs here with Soaring Glory. So he'd be one of my main fancies, along with Shake 'em Up Harry. Again, another novice, second season novice, good form around Newbury. He He was second to Shishkin, of course, last year. And I don't think he's done a fat lot wrong this year. Obviously, he chased down Meteo. Meteo doesn't run this year. That's grade 1 form with the Tolworth. I think he's quite well handicapped as well. He could do with a drop more rain, in all fairness. But those are the main two I quite like. And the other one I'd probably have a look at would be Now Guard Your Dreams if I had to have a third choice. Twiston Davis has won this race twice in the last 4 years with Al Dancer and, come on, help me out, Ed. Al Dancer.
God. Ballyandy.
Ballyandy. Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Oh, well done.
Ballyandy,
Straight in.
Yeah, help me out there.
Grey cells are going there.
And since this horse has had the hood on, he's improved quite markedly. I thought he was really tenacious the other day to beat friend or foe at Sandown. But he's definitely one to consider. But yeah, Shake 'em Up Harry and Soaring Glory, my two picks I'm going to stick with.
Great stuff there. Shake 'em Up Harry 16-1, Soaring Glory 6-1, and then Guide Your Dreams 1 to note, and also
Vicario de Bray. It's come back to me.
Finally.
Vicario de Bray, yes. It was there at the back of my brain. It just needed nudging out.
Ed?
Yeah, interesting. I kind of 3 shortlisted Vida Field, one of which is Soaring Glory, but the value, if you like, is disappearing compared to, as Andy was saying a week ago, he was latching onto it, and I think he might go off favourite. In all honesty, his form looks really rock solid, doesn't it? Obviously, he beat Brave Man's Game earlier in the season. He's got some. He's been beaten by all the good horses. Dusart, I think, is a really useful sort. They thought was going to make up into Supreme Novices. Hurdle contender. He's got injured. I just think he's really solid. He's got a lot of stamina as well. I think he's rock solid. So at double figure prices, looking for something a bit more exciting from a price perspective. On to Victory. He's only won one of his 6 starts over hurdles, but this was 105 rated flat horse. He was no mug at all. Won the November handicapped on the soft. If the rains do arrive, won't be a problem for him. Got a bit of a confidence booster last time out. And if you go back to his run at Kempton at Christmas, he was absolutely tanking at the time of his departure behind Third Time Lucky. I think he's interested in double figure price. Time White is a horse who I think has got a lot of ability. It's often far too keen. He pulled his head off last time out. Probably was beaten, but would have been placed at the time of his departure. They go a mad old gallop here. That will allow him to settle. He's unexposed. I really like the way he won at Chepstow on his comeback. And I think he's versatile in regards to the ground. He's well on soft. I think the ground might have been officially good when he won at Chepstow. And he still likely raced for the Paul Nicholls and Harry Cobden combination. So yeah, Soaring Glory would be my main pick. And then I'd be looking at double figure prices. Yeah, odds of Victory and Time White. I just don't feel there's normally, I get a feeling there's something that's going to go in the Champion Hurdle or the Supreme. I'm not sure there's an absolute Grade 1 horse ready in the making, but I think in the long term, perhaps Soaring Glory, I do really like him. I think he'll be a good chaser in time as well. But that'd be my tentative 3 for either field. And it's looking through it, you make a case for a dozen in here.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think. Am I right in saying that Tom Segal's put Soaring Glory up for the Supreme Novices in pending a good run here?
Right.
Really?
Okay.
I think he did. Yeah.
There's your answer, Ed.
A week or two ago. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Andy Holding's 5p each way, which should crash the market.
You actually fancy Time White, don't you, George?
Yeah, I back Time White. I don't know, Ed, if that's good news for you or not. We'll see. But yeah, I think in terms of horses that could be a lot better than what we're seeing at the moment, Time White has to be one of those with a circle around it. And as you say, if the race develops on his terms and he does settle early on, then we could see something worth backing. 16-1. It was 20s when I backed him a couple of weeks ago. So there you go. There's my 5p each way.
I think if you do fancy Time White, you've got to enter or factor in Milkwood into the equation, because who
you backed last time.
Yeah, he was the chief sufferer, wasn't he? When Time White ran into the back of something and then slowed down, and Milkwood, who was going the best at the time, he was the chief sufferer. I don't know how he ended up finishing third that day.
Yeah,
he's probably ground dependent. He probably want slightly better ground if he was to go soft. But as it is now, good to soft. Certainly so suit Milkwood, who's a very strong traveller.
Milkwood also 16-1 alongside Time White. That is with Hills. Time White 16s is with Paddy Power and Betfair Sportsbook. Last 2 races on the card then, and we're going to rattle through them because there aren't any prices, but just in case either of the lads fancy something and they're waiting to see what prices come out, you'll be first to know. So it is first and foremost the novice handicap chase, where we've got Millgreen and Rillo, Hold the Note, Ballymoy, Rock Point and the Gallant Way. Andy, any of these standing out for you?
Yeah, of all the races on the card, this is probably the least attractive from a betting proposition. I've got no real angle in here. I'd certainly expect Enrello to be up there in the top end of the market. He was pulled up last time out beyond Chambly, but that surely wasn't his running. But he's a nice prospect in the making. I think that would have jolted Paul Nicholls' confidence with the horse last time out, because I've listened to him talking quite favourably about this horse on quite a few occasions. He does go through his races quite well. I think small field will suit him. I think going back left-handed on reasonably good ground will suit him. Wide open spaces of Newbury should be fine. He'd probably be the one I'd look to offer up as a selection, but it'd probably be a no-bet race for me. The bumper's much more appetising.
Well, we'll get onto that in a second. Ed, anything for you here before we move on to the bumper?
I think Rio's will be favourite, the right favourite. Mill Green's interesting. This horse has wanted a trip for ages. It's kind of what I've been noting. Goes up to 3 miles here. Finished 6th in the Martin Pipes. Got hampered at the wrong time and stayed on all the way up the hill. Just one of those horses. I always see it when I think, please step them up to 3, and they come out 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, and keep doing the same old thing over and over again. This horse actually running a jumper's bumper last time out, for what it's worth. But I do think the step up to 3 miles will see Mill Green in better light, it has to be said. Perhaps a bit of a tricky ask on Chase debut, but definitely the trip is going to be a big tick in the box, because this horse just does not have the pace for 2.5 miles. So I think Enrio will be favourite, but I would be interested in what price Mill Green is priced up at, because this becomes into a test of stamina. I think that will play into his hands. But again, I probably won't be getting too involved unless the price really jumps out at me.
Mill Green, one to keep an eye on. Just for people's reference, what kind of price would you be looking for?
Well, I'm hoping to get second. Well, it all depends how they price hold the note up, because he's the one with the experience. But yeah, I mean, Rio's going to be favourite. 4 to 1, 9 to 2, perhaps on Mill Green. I mean, it's hard. Chase debut. This is the thing. Henderson's pitched this one in against horses that have already got some decent experience, which makes me think perhaps he's already showing enough from his schooling at home, or it's just a case they've got nowhere else to go with him at the moment. So all in all, I'm just got a bit of a head scratching to regards to this race. But Mill Green, I will keep an eye on from value perspective.
Interesting stuff. And then on to the bumper, the last race of the day. Plenty here from representing decent connections. I'm not going to go through the card, Andy, but you've already mentioned there's a couple interesting here for you. So you let us know who you fancy.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great action today at Newbury, but from a long-term perspective, this is an absolute belter for the if it's 1 or 2 for the future. I really like Mai Tai. I think he's a smashing horse from the Harry Fry stable. But that Harry Fry yard again. I've been talking about yards out of form. Harry's just hit a bit of a bumpy spot in the road. He's gone 33 runners and 41 days without a winner. Again, a lot of his horses are not running up to scratch. I think Misky Whiskey would have probably taken that mare's race yesterday at Sandown had she been healthy, but she didn't quite get up the hill. I think that horse brings the best form into the table. It's a race that Harry's won before. That Warwick race was very good on the speed figures. The race has worked out well. The second fine painting has won since. But the other one I quite liked, Bill Baxter. He was having his bumper debut at Fakenham of all places. Didn't look the natural route that Warren Greatchecks had probably looked to take one of his nicer prospects. But when he won his maiden point to point, he finished second in the point to point. He finished behind a horse called Dreams of Home, who's won a couple of races up the north for Donald McCady. He won by a big margin at Weatherby on debut. Then he trounced up at trounced a good field at Carlisle the other day. Very impressive. And this, I was really impressed with this fella, the way he whizzed around Fakenham. He clocked a good number. And Warren's not scared to risk him in against some promising types. So a very, very hot race. You've got Cape Horn for Nicky Henderson first time. Good risk at all. Of course, won at Cheltenham early on in the season. And Paul Nicholls got Gillian Abello in there as well. So as far as bumpers concerned, this is by far and away the best one that's been run in the UK so far. So yeah, looking forward to that race.
Interesting stuff there from Andy. A couple to keep an eye on: Bill Baxter for Warren Greatchecks and Mai Tai for Harry Fry. Anything for you, Ed?
I've got to admit, this is I wouldn't be able to do this race justice. This is too much going on here. Unbeaten bumpers, unbeaten bumper performers, unexposed sorts. I'm not adding anything of great value. Just to be honest, these are really the last thing I bet on are bumpers. I'm with you. all weather handicap, so I'd probably be even though I dread the things. Again, a watch and brief for me. I've normally come on here absolutely chopping it a bit to get stuck into things. There's perhaps a couple on the Newbury card, which I will be doing, but generally speaking, there's just so much kind of note taking, I think, here with a view to Cheltenham handicaps, even the graded races, and there's some really exciting sorts in here, which cost more than my 5p each way on Granatine, put it that way. So there's a race I'm just going to sit and watch and see what happens.
Great stuff. One horse to maybe have a look at in the market is Horn Cape, representing JP McManus and Nicky Henderson, a French recruit who's being dropped right into the deep end here. You'd think might be some expectations there to be put straight into this contest at Newbury. Right then, that brings us to a close of our preview of Sunday's racing at Newbury, which is delayed from last Saturday. Thank you very much to both Ed and for Andy for joining us. We recorded a preview yesterday for the racing at Ascot on Saturday, with Andrew Thornton joining Andy Holding and myself as well. So if it's not Saturday yet and you haven't seen the racing, you can go to any podcast provider and get the podcast there, or go to our YouTube channel. You can find all of our betting previews there across loads of different sports as well. Planning on doing loads more of these, so please do subscribe. Do download the oddschecker app as well for the very best prices, bookie offers, free bets, everything else you want, including Andy's tips every single morning straight to the app. Enjoy the racing on Sunday, and please do gamble responsibly.